This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agner.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. I'm Jay Agner. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Rasmus Barfred. He is the co-founder of the Magic 5 customized swimming goggles. Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, can't run from that. That's true.
No, it's, obviously you were on Shark Tank, got everybody excited, to see this product. And it is just like one of those things you're like, why hasn't this been done yet? So Rasmus, where are you from originally? And was there anything in your childhood that led to you being an entrepreneur later in life?
I'm from Denmark in Europe, northern part of Europe, tiny country up there in Scandinavia. It's when you're born in a welfare state, there's nothing that really pushes you to become an entrepreneur because life is really easy. Why go out and take a huge risk? It was not something that I wasn't born and thought about building my own business from day one. I just kind of happened, to be honest. Then in hindsight, I can see that I definitely didn't get the interest and the foundation of running a company or being an entrepreneur from my dad. He's very risk averse and he's had the same job for I don't know how many years. And he really thrives and loves that environment. Whereas my mom, she's much more entrepreneurial in spirit. So it's definitely from her that I've got some of that stuff injected since my childhood without really knowing it. But I was part of starting the first business that I was part of from like an early, like basically starting up the business was actually together with one of my current co-founders, Bo, whom I was in Shark Tank with. He called me the same day that I started university and was like, hey, I have this idea. I've developed this software online, B2B SaaS product. I don't have time to execute it. It's a really interesting idea. We can try to build it up in Denmark as a test case and then expand to Europe and see if it works out. I was like, yeah, why not? And then I jumped into that and did that for 4 years. And it was actually a successful business in and of itself, but we needed a certain legislation to be adopted across the European Union. That never happened. So after 4 years, it's like, there's no point in running it to FTE
Right.
kind of company. So we actually scaled it
Right.
down. But that was my first experience. This is like 15, 17 years ago, 15, like ish, when I was 18. So yeah, that's how that whole world for me began. Then I had 5 years doing corporate, boring stuff, mergers and
Mm-hmm.
acquisitions, suit and tie every day, a lot of Excel sheets, a lot of PowerPoints before we started the Magic 5. So
Wow.
yeah,
Well, that's a interesting kind of taste of startup life before you got, jump back into things. I saw you had all sorts of degrees from various places. What was your goal? I mean, you seem to at least have some of the business basics or
yeah.
advanced things, in your pocket.
So yes, so I always knew that I was not gonna be a hairdresser. I was not gonna be a developer, like software wise. I wanted to venture. I wanted to go into the business side of things. That was what I was drawn to. So in Denmark we have like three different types of schools, and I picked the one that was catered towards like business, commercial marketing, all that stuff.
Hmm.
And I did the same for my university degree, that I picked something that was, I went to Copenhagen Business School, but I've always had like a really strong interest for the society and like geopolitics and stuff. So I ended up studying international business and political science and found that to be a very good mix. It was the same for my bachelor's and master's degree. It's a very good way to get uh, a very holistic education on what's going on in the world, how are things moving,
Hmm.
micro and macro. And it's like, yeah, it fitted well with the kind of path that I was on, but I didn't know from the get-go that it would be running a company, being an entrepreneur. I've learned that I really thrive in that, and it's definitely where I feel the most at home. So I'm happy that I've ended up here, but there's been no big master plans. I didn't sell golf balls on the side of the street when I was 8 years old and stuff like that. Like, yeah, kind of just happened, to be honest.
I mean, I think that's fair, and not everybody grows up, selling lemonade or whatever. And if at the end of the day, if you're doing it, that's all that matters. So let's get to Magic Five or the Magic Five. First of all, where's that name come from?
So I called when we were about to start the company, I called one of my friends, Morten, who was like this super creative guy, brain, really creative and very talented guy. And I called him. I was like, "Hey, Morten, I need to buy a coffee. We have this new idea. It's a new swimming goggle. I know it sounds crazy, but we basically take 95% of the product. It's exactly the same as other goggles, and then it's the last 5% of the product where the magic happens."
There it is.
And that's where the name came from. Then Morten, he took me, Bo, like our team on a journey where we kind of discovered that name for ourselves and figured out that it actually had meaning to us. What it means to us it's nothing related to swimming. It's not because you need to swim 5 lanes and then you'll be the best swimmer or something like that. But it's our whole product philosophy, and that really talks into our technology. So we have gone in and applied technology where it really matters for swimming goggles. Swimming goggles is all about finding a pair of goggles that's comfortable and that doesn't leak. It's about the
Right.
fit of the product.
Yeah.
The glass and the straps and the temples, all that stuff is commoditized. There's no reason to go in and try to change that. It's just changing what matters. That's the last 5%. And that's what
Hmm.
makes the whole difference. If we were to take our technology where just for the background, the way you get the goggles is that you go on our website, buy the color you like, then you download our app, and based in that app, you scan your face, and 5 days later, your custom goggles are made. They're made to fit the curvature of your eye socket, and they're super comfy, right?
Hmm.
If we took that same approach and made ski goggles, or make helmet products, or scanned your foot and made a custom shoe product, whether that would be a running shoe or a protection shoe, whatever it is, we'd approach it in the same way. The last 5% is where the magic happens. How do we go in, make a product that's significantly better when it comes to fit and comfort? Yeah, so
I love
that.
that. Yeah. And
That's
is the technology proprietary, the scanning technology?
yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So the scanning. Our technology stack is basically three components. It's the scanning. So how you scan your face. That's how we get data, figure out what your face looks like, Jay. Instead, I can see a 2D image of you right now, but what's the depth and dimensions of your face?
Sure.
We get that from the scan. So that's step one. Complicated, but it's actually not as complicated as it sounds. Then once we have all that data, that doesn't like magically produce a pair of swimming goggles, right? So our core technology is really a fitting technology. It's a huge set of algorithms that uh, has learned to understand how goggles are fitted the most optimal way on your face, right? That fitting technology goes in, work with the 3D model we created from the scan, and
Hmm.
then figures out how should we make the goggles so they will be as comfortable as possible for Jake and don't
Right.
leak.
Yeah.
That's the second part. Third part is that the production technology. We use robotics, so we have a robot arm. You basically install it on a desk, and that goes in, and then it cuts the goggle to reflect the curvature of your eye socket. Takes
Is that
it.
how it started? Is that how when you guys sat down and said, "How are we going to make this a repeatable, scalable business?" You said
Yeah,
these are the three things, and you did it.
yeah. It started out again. Bo called me and said, "Hey, I have this idea. I can't leave it." He was training for an Ironman, so triathlon where you swim, run, and swim, bike, and run. And at the time, I had done a few Ironmans, so I was kind of his go-to guy for advice on gear. So he called me and was like, "Hey, I can't find goggles that's comfortable and that doesn't leak. Doesn't make sense. All the goggles on one size fits all. Of course they don't fit, right?" And then he wanted to know which goggle I used, and my response was, "Well, my best friend, he's a competitive swimmer, and when I swam with him, he said, just buy the cheapest possible pair because nothing works." And then the three of us got together and was like, okay, how can we make a product that is custom? Because that's what you need. And then
Mm-hmm.
we put out the cornerstone for the product and said, okay, we want to make a product that is significantly better than the existing products. We want to do it by using technology, and we want to do it at a price range that was not only for Michael Phelps or the top athlete. We want to hit everyone who swims. My mom, who's swimming 30 minutes at the time in the local Y, right? And that really put a lot of requirements on our product development. And we, for instance, we thought we should 3D print the goggles, but it's not scalable. It's not economically viable. It's way too long time. You can't really, the amount of 3D printers you would need to be able to make 5,000 goggles a day, like it would take
Right.
up most of Manhattan. No, it wouldn't, but it's like, it would just be, if it's just not possible, right? So we had to go out and explore what are the different types of technologies that we could try to use to make the product. But before that, we're like, how are we going to get the data in someone's face? There was no technologies, nothing we could use. So we had to start out by developing the scanning technology, the fitting technology. Yeah.
How
So,
there was nothing out there to
so
text like that?
we got the idea back in late 16. At that time, I was working with M&A. Nicholas was pro swimmer, and Bo was a director in a big Danish software company. There was nothing we could. It was in 17. It's iPhone 5S 6 at the time. The technology in those, like, there's nothing on the market. We
Hmm.
actually thought that we would be able to license some kind
Right.
of scanning
Right.
technology. At the time, you could get a device that you put on top of your phone, and then you could scan something. It was a huge thing back then. No, not a huge thing, but it was a thing back then. But it was just very clunky, and then
Hmm.
everyone needed that device to scan the face. So what we ended
Right.
up doing was we found out how we could extract metadata from pictures taken by your phone, and then we developed an app that basically took a lot of pictures on your phone, of your face, and then we
Mm-hmm.
extracted that data and were able to transform that into a 3D model of your face. Yeah. So that's it. Started on a whiteboard, and then, okay, we need to lay the foundation for technology. We need to validate that this is feasible. And we did that in our spare time. And once we kind of laid that foundation for the product, then we were ready to quit our job and convince our wives to move from Denmark to the US startup business.
Did you
Yeah.
have how did you get to the tech from not being tech guys? Like who did the first
Well,
iteration of the
me,
algorithm?
the Niklas, the swimmer on our team, like me and Bo, we swam a bit as well. I did a lot of triathlon, so I've also spent a lot of time in the water, but I was just not competitive swimmer like Niklas. Me and Niklas, we studied IB, International Business and Political Science together. So we can't develop, but we understand the math behind our technology, particularly around our fitting technology. Bo was an engineer, so he could develop the
Got it. Okay.
technology. Yeah.
Okay. So you
So we
kind of
have
you had
in the
okay.
founding team, we have the foundation to make the technology. Yeah.
Got it.
Uh, but it's not just developing an app where you can text with one another or there's flowcharts. It's a different kind of technology too when you develop something from like the bare bones basically and coming
Right.
up with the concept and how do we do this mathematically and how do we put all these pieces together. But um, yeah, we did that in house. The first what took us 6 months of spare time after our day jobs to see, okay, this is possible, right? But it was very MVP. It was very, very early. The scanning experience back then, it was horrible. It was super difficult. But we knew that every time a new iPhone or a new Android would hit the market, the camera is going to get better. The processing
Right.
power is going to get better. Back then, it was actually a big challenge in certain parts of Europe and also the US that Wi-Fi, that connectivity to the internet was so bad most places if you're not on Wi-Fi. So people couldn't scan their face if they were just walking around the streets. Now you have
Right.
5G everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
we knew that there were a lot of things that were working in our favor, but it was, yeah,
Love that. And yeah, I mean, I was asking because a lot of founders don't have that tech in house, right? If you don't have a technology kind of co-founder, if you didn't have Bo's ability to hop in as an engineer there, how do
yeah.
you think you would have kind of procured this technology
We,
outside of your team, or would you have to hire for it?
so first off, I don't think it would have. I think the chance of succeeding would have been extremely low because then we would have. If you go out and get funding to develop tech and you're not a developer yourself, you need to convince the investor that okay, this yes, I can't do this. I can't develop this technology myself, but there are thousands of other engineers that has developed a similar social media app before, or there's thousands of other developers that has developed or worked on a flow and process oriented app like a work efficiency app, something like that, right?
Right.
Or a customer service product, something like that. So you could do so. You could hire and probably get hire and get funding for things that's already in the market where you just basically like how many apps haven't we seen that does customer service or that does engagement or some sort influencer marketing or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
right? But for this type of thing where it's like, hey, we think we can develop a scanning technology. We don't really know how ourselves. We need to find a developer that knows. It would have been
Right.
very tricky to get funding for that, I think, to be
Yeah.
honest.
No, I agree.
And yeah, so we were, but we didn't get funding in the beginning. And this will tie back to our first customer, but we bootstrapped as far as we could. Then we haven't really raised a lot of funding. We got some funding on Shark Tank, but it's not like we have venture funded our way through this. And yeah,
Well, tell me
uh,
about it. That was a great segue. Who was the first customer?
Kickstarter.
Beautiful.
So when we had laid the foundation for the technology, those three cornerstones, like the scanning, the fitting technology, and okay, we're going to use robots to do subtractive manufacturing and not additive manufacturing. We're like, okay, the robot arms, they're $35,000 each. We didn't have that kind of money just to throw into the robot arm, right?
Right.
This had this type of cost. We would need a lot of money to buy the first round of raw materials and products and everything. So we did a Kickstarter campaign in August or September, yeah, August and September 2017. And that's when we got our first customers. We got 1,500 customers out of Kickstarter, raised $100,000 ish.
Mm.
And that provided us with the first portion of startup capital that we needed to get hardware, machinery, and everything in. But most valuably, it gave us the first 1,500 customers.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something that's super innovative, there's a lot of things you don't know, right? So the first, remember this three-step of the technology: scanning, fitting, and production. Our fitting technology is really our holy grail. If our fitting technology doesn't know how to fit goggles on Jay's face, it's game over. Our scanning technology could be really good and our robots could be good. But if we found your production data, if the fitting technology doesn't work, nothing works.
Right.
So after the Kickstarter, we had a minimal viable product of our fitting technology. But that algorithm was designed based on my feedback. And I was way fitter back then than I am right now. It was based on Niklas's feedback, who was a competitive swimmer, and a lot of competitive swimmers at the Danish national team provided a lot of feedback in the product development. So we could take all that feedback and then design the start of our algorithm around their feedback.
Hmm.
What happened on Kickstarter was all the customers we got on Kickstarter, they were not competitive swimmers. They were 45, 55,
Right.
overweight, or just looked like a normal person. They were not skinny and lean and young. And our fitting technology didn't work for the first 1,500 customers. It's very bad results. And we were scratching our head like, what's going on? Until we realized that the way that the goggles fit, the way the technology fit the goggles would work really well on a thin, a younger customer,
Hmm.
but not someone who's 50 and looks like a normal person.
Wow.
So we basically had to get feedback from all these 1,500 customers
Were they
just to,
pissed? Were they upset?
no, that's the amazing thing about some were probably frustrated, right? But the Kickstarter community is awesome because it's a type of person who know who they're getting in bed with, right? They're backing something because they really want this to be out there in the market. And
Right.
they buy it at a discount and they buy it up front, and there's a lot of risk involved in it for them. They might never get the product, but what they're motivated by is helping you succeed and of course getting the product, right? But so they were super, super keen on getting product feedback. We of course had to like get back to them and say, hey guys, these are our findings from the first 1,500 goggles that we sent out, which basically was a lot of you guys didn't get the experience that we all
Right.
expected. And here's the reason, right? So we need your feedback so we can go in and modify our fitting technology. And they gave us that feedback. And then we could see it started to work better. It was not ready, but it started to work much better, right?
Mhm.
Now we have 200,000 customers worldwide, and our refund rate, the amount of customers that we refund because they don't like the fit, is 2%. So we don't have a problem right now, right?
Right.
And we haven't had a problem for the last couple, like 4 years, right? We started to see some good results pretty quickly, but that was the first customers and super valuable way to one, uh, get initial funding from that Kickstarter campaign,
Mhm.
but most importantly, get uh, a group of super fans that feel very vested. It's not the same type of relationship you have with your customer that you buy on Facebook or Instagram or something.
Right.
Like 2%, 1% of them are going to be Karens anyway, and it's the Kickstarter community is completely different. So that's another way to get your first initial customer base, right?
That's a
Uh,
great
yeah,
actually, nobody's ever brought that up before. That's a great idea. And I've only bought one thing, I think, off Kickstarter, and it was the Solo stove, those portable
mm,
camper stove things.
yeah,
And then they took off and got super popular, and I was like, I'm part of that like thing. I helped make that possible. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of community dynamic to have. I never really thought of it
exactly.
that way. All right, let's do one more question, non-business related. If you could do anything in the world and you knew you wouldn't fail, what would it be?
If and I knew I wouldn't fail,
Yep.
I would ride the Tour de France.
See, I love until it just has an answer. Like that's like a genuine. It means you don't need to think about it. I love that answer. It's the first one, obviously, that we've gotten. Why would you ride the Tour de France?
Well, I love sports. I come from triathlon. I've swum, I've cycled, I've run my entire life. And cycling has a very unique thing about it, and that is that you get a ton of experiences while you do the sport. You see a lot of things going up and down a mountain, and you typically do it with other people, so there's a social aspect to it as well. So the Tour de France for me is the most aspirational thing I would like to do as an athlete, right? A few other things that I would also really like to do is swim around Manhattan. I live here, and in a few months, then every weekend someone is swimming around Manhattan with the support crew, following them, and I would really like to do that. It's a very long swim. It's not an easy swim because there's currents and it's a little bit choppy, the water, actually. But I would really like that. And again, it's a part of swimming where you get a memorable experience for life,
Mm-hmm.
right? It
Yeah.
can be a little bit monotonous to go to the pool if you go by yourself. So anything that's open water where you see things that would be my go-to. Yeah.
Wow. Those are both great answers, and never had either one of them. So, dude, I love your story. I love the product. I love everything about you. If you want to get in touch with you directly, how do they do that? And then obviously Magic Five, the Magic Five. How do they reach you guys there?
I think Instagram would be the best place for the company. The Magic Five, that's our handle. You'll find it on there. If you can't find it, just Google swimming goggles and Shark Tank will pop up all over YouTube and whatever. Me, LinkedIn. Yeah. I think there's not a lot of guys called Rasmus Barfred. So
No, there's not. You're very
you'll
easy to
find me on
find
there.
on you're very
Exactly.
we'll
Yeah.
link you. Well, dude, I love your story. Thank you for being on, and we wish you the best of luck, and we'll catch up again soon, all right?
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate it. Appreciate the
Thanks,
time.
buddy. See you, man. Have a good one.